All right, we are live.
So exciting.
Well, hello, hello. We here this week have Dedee Cai, who is one of our speakers for the upcoming Small Business Grip, which actually is next week. And she is going to be talking on a really important topic called, let me get the whole title, Step Right Up, the Psychology Behind the Sale. I think my one question is it the psychology of me, making the sale or the person making the purchasing decision?
I can tell you that without giving too much away, because I want you to come and attend and ask questions and really benefit from the conversation. But I can tell you that it's almost like when you're having a strategy call, I feel like it's like a dance, because you're as a person who is the expert need to be able to navigate the conversation in a certain way that you're providing enough information that the person understands what it is that you're trying to offer, right? But also it's the other person needing to really understand what it is that you're selling. And I feel like it's both, right? Like, and I think as the expert, we need to do more of the weightlifting part to really understand what the person needs, but what it is which also trying to convey. But to be able to do that, we have to have the right mindset. Right, Jennifer is like getting jazzed about this, right?
Well, you mentioned dancing. I mean, I'm like Carlin here in the audience. I'm a terrible dancer, but I love dancing anyway. So yeah, that's what I was,
Well, it implies that give and take that you have to have with someone in a conversation.
Yes, and another thing too. I actually early on in my training too, one of the first things that one of my coaches taught me, and it's like made a world of a difference. She actually made us take improv classes. But it's so true. It's like you're trained to be super present with yourself, like what's going on with you and things like that. In terms of the psychology behind the sale, all of our stuff come up. Like we think that certain things is too expensive. We think that we're not good enough. We think that, we're not worthy. Like all of that, to be really honest, all comes up, whether you like it or not. But the whole point with this, unless you're willing to address all of those things, most of your sales, I guarantee you, or anyone you probably would relate, that probably didn't go really well when you're in your head, right? Like all about that. So.
Oh, look at that. Carlin says she just signed up for an improv class membership today. Carlin, that is amazing. You don't know this probably, Dedee, but I've been in an improv troupe for over a decade.
Wow.
It's been my true source of therapy for sure. But the fundamentals of improv you can apply to every area of your life and business. So I'm so glad you brought it up. And Carlin, you are going to do great.
Yeah, now you'll see a 3x in your sales.
Yeah.
That's the secret.
And even just honestly in your relationships, is really truly, Jennifer, this, and you can speak to it even more than I could probably ever, is that you get super present, like with yourself, like how to manage your excitement versus we always like, I'm so nervous, I'm so scared, but it feels entirely all the same. Whether you're scared or excited, it's the same. The only difference is when you're scared, you're not breathing. When you're excited, you're like, yeah, I get to do this, right? And that's the difference. And yes, for all of you out there, if you're like feeling weird about anything, especially speaking in public, swear, to God, my one of the biggest fears is public speaking. But improv has really helped me. I'm still working, on it. Like literally when I said breathe in, I just took a really deep breath because this is really exciting for me too. And I'm like, how's my hair? And like all up in my head, all about everything else except what I'm talking about.
And it's when you say that you struggle with speaking in public, it always shocks me because I've always been so impressed when I see you speak in public. You're very confident. And you share, your story very vulnerably, but not overly. I mean, I'm always impressed by your speaking. So.
Oh, thank you, Mary. So that means a lot. And truly, it's just because I have learned the skill of just really feeling like all of it, like whatever it is I'm going through in my body, and being okay with it and not really putting like any meaning around all of that, and just focus on you right now, Jennifer, you know what I mean? The conversation. So
I love this topic, even though it wasn't technically the topic we were supposed to be talking about. Because
but
I
it's
joined for the same reason. I had a tremendous fear of public speaking. I mean, it was crippling, and it all stemmed from a horrible public speaking experience from high school, where I literally lost myself so much on stage that I was talking in tongues, or at least it sounded like I was talking in tongues. I'm not even exaggerating. I looked in the audience and there was like shock, and the teachers were horrified at what was happening, and it was horrible. And after that I just lost all my confidence when it came to speaking in front of anybody. But even if you don't, you aren't a professional speaker, there are so many. When you're a business owner, you have to be able to speak to your team. You have to be able to accept opportunities to speak to audiences, either live or on a podcast, or, you just can't circumvent that skill. And so, I recommend improv for everybody because it is so life-changing.
Yeah, it's actually a hack, just so you know. If you want to do well in business, especially with your strategy calls, take an improv class, and it's going to make the world of a difference. But Jennifer, you're right. This is actually all related. Like, I mean, all this work with improv or not, learning how to speak, all of that goes into the psychology behind the sales, because that's what you're going to be doing, having a conversation, speaking to another person about what you do. So it's all related to public speaking. So it's all related, Jennifer. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I don't think we did a very good job, or I didn't, of introducing Dedee.
I didn't do it at all, because
we got right into it. I love it. We got really excited. So no, I appreciate we're pausing and yes.
Beep, beep, beep. We're back in this truck up. All right, we are fortunate enough to have Dedee Cai with us today and at Sales Circus as one of our featured presenters as part of our interactive programming. We're going to step right up to the psychology of the state sale during her session, but what you need to know is Dedee Cai is a coach, and she's really specializes in building a profitable business with you. So she helps coaches and consultants achieve and maintain peak performance in both life and business, because it is all about balance. And if you're ready to scale, it's time to maximize your profits and fulfillment by working with Dedee. So I have some friends that have worked with Dedee. I have heard through the grapevine. I don't know her very well yet, but I can't wait to change that. I have heard at various times through the business world grapevine only good things about Dedee and her outcomes with her clients. So I'm super excited to have her here, and so should you be excited. I don't know. Yeah. Did I do okay, Dedee? Did I miss anything?
Oh my goodness, fabulous! Thank you for those kind words. And yes, I always tell Mary Sue this, is that I always love hearing great things that you have heard about me, and thank God there's nothing else out there that I don't want to be shared among all the business colleagues and partners. So me too. I'm actually very excited, to be here. I watched part of your first summit last
May.
Yeah. And I'm very honored to be here. And thank you so much for allowing me to speak at your event. And me too, I'm really excited to be sharing on this topic because it's very near and dear to my heart. Like I have shared already, when I first started, I was very awkward. I was straight awkward. I was told to use the script, and literally I was like, wait,
I cannot do the script.
Question number 3 for you is, it was so awkward, but what I realized, doing it the wrong way and all of that, to realize that, wait, yes, there should be a structure. So you and the person both know what to expect, and that you're covering all bases, and you're really making sure that your offer is clearly communicated. But at the same time, again, it's like a dance. It's like improv. You need to be able to customize the conversation so that you're sharing yourself still as a person, because you're just not a robot, and that you're really listening very carefully and listening really generously. And what I mean generously is the type of listening that you want to use is without any thought about, oh, what should I say and respond to, right? You're going to listen with your blinders on, focus on the person. So yeah, no, this topic is very exciting for me. And honestly, I can talk about sales all day long. And so I was really excited when you're like, sales circus, oh my gosh, like there's so many things. But I really want to hone in the importance of the psychology behind it, because we really need to know ourselves. We really need to understand our self-worth. And we really, especially women, right? Women, and really know how to convey our value and really understand that what we have to provide is worth of value for whatever the monetary price is, but beyond that, right? And so not a lot of business owners really understand that. And honestly, too, working with my clients, I always have to be on them so much about raising their rates, and even trying to like quote their rate for the first time. It's always quite a struggle, just because of the mindset shift that they need to make and work on, just to make sure that they feel authentic when they're saying it, they're really owning it. And without saying too much about what I'm going to be teaching, you have to come to the presentation. That we have to really know ourselves. And I think it's a great time to really see what it is that you already have. Is it really working for you? What can we do to up-level your conversations? That's first of all, if you're still starting out. But if secondly, too, do you feel really excited? Like, what I want is for you to understand that there's definitely a way to prepare yourself so that you get really excited that, oh my gosh, I have a, I have a strategy call today, and I can't wait to talk to that person or get to know that person, because that energy really transpired. Even if like most of my calls are not on Zoom, it's over the phone, but they most of the time could feel my energy because I'm that excited about talking to them about my work and working together. So
I'm so glad you said that, because I do feel so energized talking to potential clients. I love discovery calls. I love onboarding calls. I mean, I will get up at any hour really to do them, because I just love them. And even if a discovery call doesn't pan out, like if I'm not, my company's not the right fit for their needs for whatever reason, there's always something that happens in the future that comes back in a positive way. Either they eventually become a client, or they refer somebody, or maybe we just connect as business friends. I mean, there's no bad outcome as far as I'm concerned. At least I think if you go into it with that attitude.
Yeah. Well, and I've also had having software and that I'm offering, people come to me when they feel like they need any kind of software, right? So I will have conversations where my software is not the fit for them right now, because maybe they're just not ready in business. They don't need all the bells and whistles that I have, or they're really looking for something else. But just having the conversation, is good for them. Mm-hmm. And I certainly learn a lot about, well, am I communicating correctly in all of my marketing and messaging? Because sometimes, I have learned that I have confused somebody with that, and that's why they were coming to me, or just I'm not being clear on who's perfect for the tool. So,
yeah.
And they appreciate that I'm honest and say, I don't think this is a fit for you right now. And here's why.
Yep, 100%. That's always a lessons learned in every conversation.
Yeah.
And I love it. So yeah, I can talk about it all day long, but.
Well, and we appreciate that you're coming. I wanted to point out that all of our speakers have been around the block a couple times, and so has Dedee. And Jennifer and I make a real point of bringing on people that not only can talk the talk, but they have definitely walked the walk, because we want people that have done it. And so you've not only built this company, but you have built other companies in the past, most of them brick and mortar. And so you have a lot of experience of building businesses, which is what makes you a great business coach.
Yeah. And brick and mortar is no joke.
Yeah.
I went down that dog and pony show, and I will never do it again.
You and me both, Jennifer. That's why we're here today. Do what you do.
Yes.
That's not to knock on any of the brick and mortar business owners right now. It's really, honestly, if it wasn't for the brick and mortar businesses that I started, I wouldn't know what to do and especially what not to do. So honestly, everything that I've spent time and money and everything I did in my brick and mortars, it's teaching me so much about business. That's why when it came to this business, I was already ready and I exactly knew what I wanted. So yes, wherever you are, brick and mortar or not, it's exactly where you need to be, because that's all the experiences that you need for your business currently and future business if you want to play in it.
Yeah, I learned so much. This is not a knock on brick and mortar, because, oh my gosh, I know some people doing some fabulous businesses with brick and mortar. I just did not do so good with it myself, but it was a lot more. But so Dedee, I want to talk a little bit about, because we were talking about the psychology of the sale, and I think you were sort of alluding to the fact that as business owners, if we don't get to know ourselves real well, like inside and out, we can self-sabotage. And I'm assuming you've seen some of that self-sabotage in action. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what that looks like, what, maybe some of the common ways that you've seen people, with no names mentioned, self-sabotaging, and how, we can work, at least recognize it, if not fix it immediately.
So especially when it comes to sales, right? Like when we are talking about that. So how you, first of all, I believe in strategy when it comes to business as well, right? But I also believe in mindset and really getting to know ourselves too. That's 80% of the time, in fact, and 20% is strategy. So the strategy you need to put in is you really need to understand how often, right? Like in terms of your rates, how often are you going to raise your rate, and what kind of structure that you want to use and start with, right? So if you're in business in terms of service-based or consulting, there is a percentage that you have to increase after a certain amount of time or the number of clients, right? And so for example, if you start somewhere, within 6 months, you have to increase your rates, or after every 6 clients, depends on how fast you sign them. You know what I mean? Because you have that much more experience and you want to be really competitive. And not only that, you want to charge your worth. Because really, I mean, I can say that my rates is competitive for a coach in my space, because of, like Mary Sue said, I had experiences building other businesses. So I have, quite a bit of business experience. So first of all, you have to have a structure of where you start with your rates, how you're going to increase it. And your basically your clients, new or or previous or like current client, really know to expect it. Like they just know, right? Just like, I mean, think about inflation. You have to at least increase 3 to 5% every single year. If you're not raising your rates every single year, there's a problem.
Well, I've also heard that if you have, let's say 3 calls or 10 calls, whatever, and all of them are like, oh yeah, I'm in, then you're not charging enough, because
there's not enough
value.
You need a little bit of an objection.
Yes. So yeah, you want, exactly. So that's so that in terms of the structure, yes, I'm definitely going there too. It's a great segue for that, Mary Sue. So yes, you have to have a structure of where you want your rates to be, how much you want to, and this is all encompassed into like, or comprehensive in your business plan, right? Because at the end of year planning for next year, you should know how much money you want to make. And based on how much money you want to make depends on what is the cost of your products and services overall, right? To really plan for it. So the strategy needs to be there. And secondly, to back up the strategy, you have to really understand what it is that you're going through in terms of like your self growth, right? Are you investing in yourself in ways that you deserve to charge that much? Because let's say if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not educating yourself to make sure that you're, up to speed with everything that's in the market and things like that, to be teaching your clients and things like that, then you're not going to be able to feel confident enough to charge what you want to charge. And sales is really unique. Unless you're willing to invest in yourself, you're not going to feel very confident charging a premium rate, period.
Yeah.
So yeah, right? Like it's a psychology thing, it's a psychological thing. Like and think about it. If you're not willing to invest in yourself, why would you expect people to invest in you?
Yes, I invest a lot in myself, so I expect others to invest a lot in me too.
But that's the first thing, right? Like you have to expect at least for yourself, like you have to be willing to buy your products and services to begin with, And so what you're talking about, Jennifer, is great. It's like how do you know you're going, like, you're self-sabotaging, is if you're in a sales conversation. I'm going to be specific since we're talking about that. If you're in a sales conversation and you're like, well, my new rate is $5,000 a month, but I just charged my last client $3,800, and it's okay if you pay me $3,800. If that's not too much, then maybe we can do $3,200. How's that? You're not even done quoting, and you're like giving discounts left and right. You're just like, that's one thing. That's like the symptom that's actually manifesting into a conversation. But it could be you even have this thing about, I don't know if I should ask for this much. And that you always going to have that. And if you don't have that question while you're like, when you're about to have a sales conversation, that's a sign you're not charging your worth.
Yeah.
You should always be slightly uncomfortable with your rate.
Slightly uncomfortable. On the uncomfortable meter, what are we at? Like a 5?
So uncomfortable, I like, here's the thing, right? Like the more uncomfortable you are, the bigger the transformation. So it's up to you, like the meter you choose, right? If it's 5, then maybe, that much transformation, right? That much increase in your rates, that much, revenue increase in your business. But if you really want to be really uncomfortable, then that much of a leverage. So it's really your option there. But what I would say, at least from my school of thought, or what I was trained, is that we're always going to be uncomfortable selling ourselves. Yeah. It's very different when you're working a job and you're like, yeah, Microsoft has this thing, you should really buy it. It's very different. When you're selling ourselves, it's just a human element, right? Like we're there's always a little bit of that uncomfortable feeling of like having to sell ourselves, so know that that's one expression or one symptom or, one in action.
Nice job, Carlin.
Yeah.
Getting the ground.
Mm-hmm. And exactly. So yeah, does that help answer your question, Jennifer, in terms of like how you see when you start to really, self-sabotage? It's like you second guess yourself, you start creating all these meanings around your new rates, and how, and this is rampant, is that most people think that they can't, like the person can't afford it.
Right.
Yes, that one is, I kind of do research for myself and say, well, they pay for this and this. I mean, like my clients are paying for all these digital tools that they never use. So that helps me with justifying the cost that they're investing in my tool, because they're already spending on stuff they're essentially throwing money down the toilet because they never use it.
Exactly. And so, or they can go and get a cheaper service elsewhere, but are they going to come out with the same results? Probably not. And so, but the biggest piece is you really have to know the value that you are actually providing, and it goes beyond just the transaction. And that's one reminder I want to remind everybody, especially women business owners, is that no matter what it is you do, even if you think that you're selling a product, it goes beyond the actual transaction.
Yes.
Even if it's just a product, it does. If I buy a lipstick, not just because I'm just going to wear it till it's gone, that's just not the value of it. But if it's a right color for me, I'm going to feel super confident every single time I speak in public. And that makes me feel like $1 million. That is beyond the $50 I spend on a lipstick.
What kind of lipstick are you buying?
Yeah, I put that in the chat. Put a link to that lipstick in the chat. Okay, so
you know what I mean? Like
something else. Let me talk about the other side. This is the piece that I don't think enough people talk about. Like we always hear that we don't charge enough, right? And I think that's true. For probably 95% of us don't charge enough, right? But the reality is there is at some point a price resistance. Like the market determines, price and value to they, it's not just up to you. So, like for instance, let me tell a little story. So way back when in my brick and mortar, I worked with some artists, and these were all, grassroots artists, no famous people yet. And I had an artist who priced his painting at $10,000, and then I had another artist that, priced his paintings between $100 and $200. Now, the guy with the let's just say that the talent was they were on par talent wise. Well, so the guy charging $1 or $2 a painting, he was making a pretty good, income because he was moving work. Never saw the $10,000 painting sell, right? Because there was price resistance. People weren't willing to pay $10,000 for a painting, for his painting. And that was just the reality. They had the same exposure to the same, audience in an affluent area. So I guess what I'm trying to say is when are we unrealistic about our pricing?
That's a good question.
Yeah. I actually, not this presentation, but that was another presentation that I did was exactly this. I really addressed this part too, is that 100%, you have to really understand your market.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, charging your worth is charge whatever you want, even it's ridiculous and you don't have any customers. The point is you want to charge a rate that is going to be reasonable for you and, for your customer, right?
Yeah, if your ideal client is
willing.
Joe Schmo, they're not going to pay $10,000 for artwork.
Yes. You know what I mean? And so just to have to really understand like your market too. But here's also another thing. The example that you gave with two different artists, different prices. So the guy that's charging $10,000, maybe the solution should have been that he finds another clientele.
Yeah, right. Maybe he wasn't in the right
space, right?
Because if he were to sell it, he has to do a lot less work in terms of creating than the guy who is selling 1 to 200. So there is that there is that sort of strategy behind your pricing, right? That goes into it. Like, who's your audience? What audience are you marketing to? Right. And is that audience going to pay you what you want to be paid to make the revenue goals you want to make and create the business and lifestyle that you want to design? So there's so much to unpack.
Yeah, there's so much impact. And but the majority of it definitely has to do, when it comes to sales or strategy calls, it definitely has to do with you, with you, how you feel about yourself from internally, because that's how it's going to be expressed and, in the conversation, because it's a one-on-one interaction, that person needs to really feel that you're confident, what you're doing, you're really walking the walk and talking the talk and things like that. But yes, like in general, there's always exception to the rule, right? With what price to charge. And it's really important to know, like one of the business owners that do really well is because they really understand the pain points of what their clients are going through and that what are they willing to pay for, right? Yeah. Like, what is the value of that service? And, but that's not to say that you always should go with, the market. Because, like I said, this is a great example I love to use. Is I have a coach of mine, one of my clients, and who has been coaching less than I have. She's only been coaching for 2.5 years. I've been coaching for 5 years, but she's right behind me when it comes to rates. And you know what? That's okay. I've been training her well. Like, I love it. You know what I mean? I've been training her well, and she coaches so much more often than I have, because I don't work as many hours as she does. And she really busted her tail the past 2.5 years to build what she's built. So she deserves every single penny of it. So I share that to say that, yes, whatever the market dictates, don't let that be your ceiling, because the whole point with creating your own business is you can create your own ceiling. And what works for you.
I love that.
That's a perfect message on International Women's Day, where we have been cracking open that glass ceiling for decades now, centuries now. So that's great. That's a great way to wrap it up. Like,
I agree.
Your own glass ceilings, create your, smash that ceiling. There is no ceiling.
There's no ceiling. Like, create your own.
Well, and we didn't really get to talk about your book. I know we're at the end of our time, but the working title is The Overcomer, which Dedee is going to be, I guess, pre-selling soon, about, and it's a bunch of different stories on people that are overcoming their obstacles and creating opportunities for themselves. So, this is why we wanted to bring Dedee to this group, because she is so positive and she has all these wonderful stories to help you see yourself in the future making more things possible for yourself.
Yep.
So,
thank you, ladies. Yes.
this is so hard. The heart, who makes the best?
I'm always like,
There
do
we
we
go.
do this way? But then the words are so awkward. It's like this. What?
Well, thank you so much for being here, Dedee, and we look forward to your talk next week on, I think it's Thursday. Yes, Thursday. And thank you for participating.
We're just 1 week out from Sales Circus. If you are listening to this and you don't have your ticket yet, please get your ticket. The more, the merrier. We want all the people in the tent.
Yay.
The content. All right. Thanks, Dedee.
Thank you, ladies. Have a great